What's up guys, welcome to Voicey here. This is your host, Captain Zach, and today's subreddit is r/IDontWorkHereLady. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. This story is called, I'm so sorry, I don't work here anymore. After listening to some funny highlights on YouTube, I thought I'd share my own experience in having to explain I don't work here. Fair warning now, I like to write, so it's grab your glasses for story time or don't. No shame on clicking on buy. Whoa, yes there is, do not listen to them. My first job in high school was working for a local sports facility, and I was there for a little over a year working pretty consistently 3 or more days each week. The facility hosted tons and tons of events, practices, parties on a very regular basis. Long story short, I left the company but I was still playing in high school sports, so I still came to use the facilities all the time. Like someone wearing a red polo and tan corduroy pants into a Target, it was my own fault going in the same clothes I'd normally wear to work. Except for the fact I normally wore workout clothes to work, which made that whole circle of logic unfixable. Because every regular knew my face and knew I worked there, they assumed I still did and would constantly ask for help. At first, I'd oblige happily, as after I left the business, they were pretty short-staffed, and they never minded a helping hand. But I'd try and casually slide somewhere into the conversation. By the way, I don't work here anymore, or something along those lines, and sadly, nothing big, dramatic, or wild happened there. Well, that all makes sense and is more just a wholesome story or just background or whatever. Anyways, I wasn't just a jock working a jock job. I was also a computer, math, and science nerd, a car guy, a chef, a photographer, and a whole mix of different hobbies, skills, and passions. I ended up getting a job in a small framing store, where I'd worked for a few years until a few months before their closure as a company. Besides the few times I locked my own dumbass out of the store, or the time my manager plowed into the side of my mom's car, the night before I was taking said mom's car on a 400-mile drive for my girlfriend's prom, nothing too eventful happened at that store while I was working there. I'm a photographer and couldn't just not frame the works I wanted to keep forever, so I'd still go back to a lot to buy frames and stuff. The employees there would let me work on my own computer for designing frames unless it was needed, obviously. One day, in particular, it was just the manager that had backed into my mom's car and me in the store. He wanted to go out for a smoke break, and their new hire was already over an hour late with no word on whether she was coming or not. So I said, "No one's coming, dude. And if they do, worst case scenario is I can say you're on the phone." He agrees and goes out back. I keep working on my designing and someone walks in. I did have to fish every urge in my body to not say, "Hi, welcome on in. Is there anything I can help you find?" I figure instead to just make it obvious I don't work here, so I quickly throw my headphones in and just get back to work, just making sure the person who walked in isn't trying to take anything. I lose track of her over my music and my work until she jump scares the living dog dookie out of me by finger stabbing my back. I quickly turn around and take a headphone out, expecting it to be my manager. But obviously, I already said it was just the shopper. My headphones weren't out a nanosecond before this woman was screaming an inch from my face some incoherent nonsense. Per my memory from 4 years ago, here's all I remember. "I cannot believe the nerve you have being so disrespect." Massive wad of spit lands a hit marker in my freaking eyeball. "Full and lazy working with headphones." I can't emphasize it properly via text, but if you've ever seen the llamas with hats video, take the whiny drawn out voice and tone really high pitch and say headphones the same way at a very high volume. If you're laughing, believe me, I damn near busted like a friggin' balloon when I heard her scream and spray it into my skull. There were some humana stutters for a few minutes while the old small block tried to fire back up. Then she came at me with, "You friggin' degenerate friggin' Mexican taking a job away from us, go back to your own country." I should mention right here actually, I'm white. Like, really white. My little brother has slightly darker skin, but I have all the blonde hair, blue-eyed blood there could be. Yet I have brown hair and hazel eyes. Not to mention, this is all taking place in a predominantly Latino neighborhood where she couldn't have walked into the store without seeing someone first who was actually Mexican. If not at least far more Mexican than my pale ass is. Like the security guard, Julio. who's usually not far from our entrance, I'm pretty sure only knew hello and stop in English. My manager's walking back into the store as she's like, "I demand to speak to your manager to have you fired where you stand." He just starts laughing his ass off and says, "Yeah, who's your manager, kid?" I have no idea how to respond to any of what just happened, so I defaulted to, "Soy blanco como mierda." Again, white as hell, and that's what I understood to mean, "I'm white as frick." Not sure if it's right. And he knew what I was saying and was slapping his knees laughing while this woman's neck vein is swollen to the size of a Karen, and it goes. Some more mouth blabbing, and suddenly some huffs and puffs, and she storms out of the store, leaving my manager about ready to piss himself, rolling on the floor laughing, and me still standing there with Alec Baldwin's confused ass photoshopped over my own. I chuckle a couple times and say, "Someone came in and I think she wants a word with you." I heard some tires screeching in the parking lot and some honks as she undoubtedly almost killed someone out there. To this day, I'm still so confused as to what this woman actually said and how the actual hell she thought I was 50 shades of tan darker than I was or something. The Spanish was just to try and piss her off some more, if I'm honest, which I guess seemed to have worked in getting her to leave. But I still want answers, damn it! Anyways, that was my I Don't Work Here Lady highlight. Sorry if it's a bit long-winded. I wrote this after 18 hours of YouTube and Xbox. Bro, that was a hilarious story, I gotta admit. As my good buddy Fix-Em-Up Zach says, "You can't fix stupid." This story's called "A Wild Karen Trying to Get Me Fired from a Job I Didn't Even Have for Not Speaking Russian." A little bit of backstory to understand this a little better. In Estonia, there are usually a lot of Russians going around, especially in summer. Many often learn Estonian because, well, they're living in a foreign country. It's the normal thing to do. Then there are those who just choose not to learn it despite living here because Estonia used to be occupied by Russians. So some believe that we should learn their language despite them literally living in a foreign country, which is quite an absurd expectation in my opinion. In summer, my friend had a part-time job at the beach as a carousel, bounce house, trampoline, ticket salesman, plus having to help kids on the carousels. You get it, it's something a teen can handle. They didn't have any uniforms and usually would just sit in the shade near the actual employee chair or table until someone asked to buy a ticket, usually wearing summer clothes and a fanny pack for money. Sometimes I and some others would hang out at her workplace since it was allowed and we were teens, so we were bored and had nowhere to be at. So basically, my friend was packing, as they were closing up, in the tent nearby, and I just happened to sit near the employee chair to make sure her backpack wasn't stolen. That's when it happened. This Russian lady in her 40s with blue eyeshadow on her eyes and leopard print leggings way too small for her stomach, squishing her waist and creating more rolls than there were, dragging her blonde kid by the wrist and pushing her 1 to 2-year-old in a trolley, or whatever you call it in English. A baby trolley? There must be a word better for it. Stroller. Was waltzing towards me. I was absolutely terrified she was gonna make me babysit her kids while she was going to jump on the trampoline or some crap. But I realized quickly that she would have destroyed the trampoline, so I had no idea why she was coming towards me. Then it hit me. Oh no, she thinks I work here. The lady stated something in Russian and threw €2 on the nearby table, tapping her foot. I was sitting there absolutely confused, trying to mimic something as I couldn't remember my Russian from 6th grade, sitting on the bench next to the worker's chair. Then I realized how to end this madness. I was gonna say the only thing I can say in Russian. "Я не понимаю по-русски," which means I don't understand Russian. Granted, I've been taught Russian from 6th grade, so I more or less understand some words in simple sentences and can guess the meaning easily. I just can't speak it. She replied with something along the lines of, "How can you say that without knowing Russian? You're lying." Then she went on a huge rant of what I'm guessing, judging by how many times she said words like school, teach, Estonia, rude to Russians, how Estonians are rude to Russians and should learn Russian instead of being schlongheads and speaking their own language in their own country. She was yelling her guts out until I understood a complete sentence. "Я хочу поговорить с менеджером. Ты будешь уволены," or something along those lines, which means, "I want to speak to the manager, you'll be fired." Then I remembered how to say I don't work, so I said, "Я не работаю." But her kid cut me off with his crying, and her other kid kept demanding the bounce house. Then she was trying to comfort her kid and got quiet. This bench had ruined my day, so instead of telling her that I don't work here during the quiet time, I waited for her kid to calm down. I promised myself I wouldn't be such a pushover and stood up, being taller than her by surprise. I was 15 and 5'9", and I said in the loudest voice possible, exactly after when her kid had calmed down, literally, I don't work! I know how hard taking care of a kid can be, so I purposely yelled so she'd have to console her kid again. I felt like a douche, but I was tired of being a pushover. Kid started bawling, her other kid trying to run towards the bounce house and trying to make her mom take him there. She got so angry that she was actually red, screaming something, and literally dropped her baby into the sand, mentioning manager and that I should just do my job and not fool around just because they're Russian, multiple times, and I was scared that this bench was gonna kick my ass from the rage. I may be a butthole, but I felt bad for the baby and rushed past that bench to pick it up, which infuriated the mother more. Then put it on the trolley. No one should have a mom like that, I thought. Eventually, my friend's boss, who can speak Russian, asked what was going on. I said that this Russian bench thinks I work here. The lady started throwing a literal tantrum and crying about something. She was speaking fast and in Russian, trying so hard to be dramatic that her kid escaped into the bounce house, which I wasn't even gonna try and stop because, again, I don't work there. He then told her, simply in Russian, she doesn't work here, and we're closing up anyway. Also, get your kid off there. The lady gets this look on her face that she's gonna sue me, and no one listens to her, but leaves with a few Russian curse words and calling her bratty-seeming kid over, who had been interrupting the entire time by demanding going to the bounce house and yelling for her mom. I was almost crying. Thanked the man as friend's boss. Then he said, "Oh, I don't work here either. I was just bored and watched the show from the bench near the swings. You should probably learn Russian. She said some pretty nasty things about Estonians." Then proceeded to translate me what she said to the manager. Apparently she said that I threw her precious baby into the sand, denied them of service because of where they're from, that she's a single mom and they should give my paycheck to her, how I mocked her and how Estonians should all speak Russian. I thanked him again and he left to get some ice cream. Then my friend finally came back and we started rolling up the carpets and deflating the bounce house, etc. After she was off duty, I couldn't wait to tell her the story, but she was busy telling me some of her issues, so it wasn't the right time. I thought I'd tell her some other day, and it's been half a year, and to this day nobody knows this, so I'm happy to share it. Sorry guys, but excuse my Russian, but who in the bled drops their kid on the ground on purpose? I can understand accidents, but jeez. Also, me saying excuse my Russian was me also saying excuse how bad it is, as well as, the Russian in and of itself, in that little last bit right there. This story's called, I'm just the delivery guy. So I don't know if this belongs here, but I couldn't stop laughing. A little backstory. Me, work for a freight company, and my job is to drive around town in a semi-truck with a 28-foot trailer with a liftgate on it, to deliver items on pallets that are too big for normal mail trucks. So I'm delivering an industrial dishwasher to a new restaurant. I have to squeeze my truck through the alley to the back door like normal. I'm too big to park on the side of the road. I go in and the manager politely says, "We can't take that today. I was told I was supposed to come in 2 days and I just don't have the room." I said, "No problem, I'll bring it back in 2 days." I load it back up and leave, which by the way is not easy to do because it weighs 700 pounds. Fast forward 2 days. I'm back behind the restaurant, so I lower my lift gates, open my door, and head inside with paperwork I'll need to show the customer. I look around inside and find an employee that takes me upstairs to a locked door where a man, rude owner, comes out and immediately stares at me and repeatedly interrupts while I'm saying my opening line, "Hello, I'm me from Freight Company. What do you want?" Yeah, I have your dishwasher." He abruptly walks away, so I follow him into the kitchen area where he starts barking orders. "So I need this dishwasher pulled out, that electrical line replaced, the feed and drain lines replaced, and you need to take the old one with you. This was supposed to be done yesterday and we opened in 2.5 hours. Obviously, I'm confused, so we share an awkward stare for what seems like an eternity until he breaks the silence with a, "Well?" I realize what's happening here, so I say, "Sir, I don't know if someone told you the wrong information, but I'm not the installer. I'm just here to drop it off." He didn't like that. "I don't care what you're here for, I need this done now." All I can muster is, "Sir, if you need it installed, you're gonna have to call a plumber." He then throws a fit and yells at me saying to get it down there before he calls my boss. This is where I get evil. You see, we have to get a signature on a delivery receipt to complete the delivery. Well, I had him sign it before all this happened. So I go the 150 yards and 2 staircases back to my truck, get in the back, and lift the pallet with the pallet jack. At 700 pounds, it's hard to move even with that. I drop it to the asphalt, load my jack back up, and leave. As I leave, I see him come running out, waving his arms, and I keep going. An hour later, I get to the yard and my boss/uncle says, "Got a call from rude owner. He's pissed." Then he sticks his hand up for a high five. Nice one. Moral of the story, don't be rude to people who have the power to make your day terrible. Ooh, that was mean. Justified though, justified. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.